All right, welcome back to KM6 LYW Radio, the show about amateur radio or ham radio, reimagining radio in the information age. You know, a lot of these rigs have built-in modems or TNCs that are decoding packets that are coming in over the radio. Are they all the same? Are you decoding all of the packets that are hitting your antenna? Let's find out. This time on KM6 LYW Radio. Yep. All right, welcome back. I don't know where to stop on those guys. Free bumper music, love it. So, what prompted all this? I've been using the same HT probably for 7, 8 years now. It's the Yaesu FT1, and I use APRS extensively, especially when I go out into the wilderness. Where I lose contact with everything and everyone, and this is my lifeline, using text messages back and forth to the XYL or email, using APRS packet radio, and I need to know for a fact that I'm getting those really weak signals, and so far this has really been my only option. Initially I bought like an FT3DR. It's very similar to this 5DR, almost identical really. And I put them side by side on the hill, and I put the antennas up, and I started decoding packets, and I would count the packets as they came through into the station list. And after an hour or so, this old radio, this old Yaesu FT1 decoded like twice as many packets as Yaesu's flagship FT3DR. So I was okay, maybe it's experimental. So I swapped positions, same antennas, and did the same thing. Only in this test, the brand new radio only decoded about a third of the packets, and I just couldn't figure it out. In fact, I actually sold the radio, and I went back to my old trusty FT1DR. Battery life isn't great, but at least I knew it decoded APRS packets. So it got me wondering how many other radios do or don't decode packets. In the end, I ended up buying this FT5. I just got a deal I couldn't refuse. And what it was the RX saver. You can duty cycle the receiver in these. And normally I just leave the RX saver on like half a second. So it only actually checks for RF every half a second or so, and then decode stuff. But the problem is, if you do that with packet radio, you're clipping off the beginning of the packet. So it turns out RX Saver is okay on this one because it knows not to do RX Saver on packet, but not on the newer rig. Do not use RX Saver if you're using APRS on these newer Yaesu. So that's what prompted all this. And I got to thinking, well, how well does the Kenwood do? Let's take a look at how well it receives. And we've also got some of the I don't want to call them gray market, the little more Chinese-oriented radios. This also has a built-in TNC. The VGC radios, even their handhelds, have built-in modems and receivers. So I was thinking, well, this is more of an SDR thing. Let's see how well this decodes packets, and then I'll kind of compare them all to a baseline using like a really expensive SDR radio like the ICOM 705 with a really nice software package like Direwolf, which has multiple decoders with different emphases, trying to just scrape the last little bit of data out of the RF that's hitting that antenna. So let's compare these things. I was pleasantly surprised. Let's check it out. So I have to describe our testing mechanisms here. This isn't really super scientific. This isn't a super fine ultra comparison between radios. It was kind of a pass-fail thing. Did it receive a whole bunch of packets or did it not? Initially, I tried to make an antenna that would simultaneously feed all of these rigs. It didn't work out. But one thing I noticed that here, if I omit the message type packets, the SMS packets, all of the positions and beacons were all pretty much the same every hour. We get about 260 beacons here in Northern California per hour. So I ran each one of these radios in turn, and if it got close to that, it was a pass. If it got half of that, that's a fail. That's not cool. So again, we're just testing the receive capability of the internal modems on these things. We're not using Direwolf. We're not using Raspberry Pi. We just want to see how well these radios receive packet data. So to collect the data using the internal modem, since we can't use Raspberry Pi, we can't use Direwolf, we're not testing the audio quality, right? We're testing the modems themselves. It turns out a lot of these radios have a little USB serial port in them. In fact, you can go in and configure the radio to have the COM port output output GPS type of data, NMEA 9 sentences, and it will actually report all of the position packets that it receives. This could be objects or MIC packets, and you can see them here. We're doing it live right now. This is on the FT5DR. We're using the RT Systems programming cable, and we just hook it up to the radio and hook that up to our computer, and you're actually looking at the modem output coming from each one of these radios. In fact, the Kenwood does exactly the same thing. Both of these Yaesus do it. So that's how I did this test. So these are just position type packets. We're excluding the message type packets, and we just started doing some recordings, and I did a recording with each radio for an hour. Some radios I did a whole bunch of times. This includes the Yaesu FT5, FT1, the Kenwood THD74. I've got a Yaesu FTM400 back here, and I just performed the exact same test at different times of day, but definitely during the day. And they all, we got some pretty good packet counts here. So I forgot to mention, we also got the VGC or Vero radios. These have modems in them as well, so they're also decoding packets internally. And they make some HTs, and so this is the Vero 7500. We tested that as well. I'm just cutting to the chase here. These are the numbers that we received, the number of packets we received in an hour for each one of these radios. And the takeaway here is they are really close, sufficiently close. I wouldn't compare these numbers specifically because they were different recordings at different times. Maybe in the future we can use that APRS CD that's out there. It has an audio recordings of this stuff, and then we can compare each radio. But for me, this is a pass-fail kind of thing. I wanted to see, you know, if they were getting all the packets, half the packets. These are all close enough as far as I'm concerned. So my baseline was the FT1, right? That's at 284 packets. The brand new Yaesu FT5 is at 255. That's sufficiently close. It's close enough. And then we got the Kenwood, which has been around a long time. The THD74, that's really a flagship APRS radio. In fact, this is one of the first radios to have a Bluetooth KISS TNC in it. That's at 234. Very good. Kenwood, fantastic. The VGC, I expected this to be a fail, but honestly, it got more packets than any of them. I can't believe, you know, maybe because this is an SDR radio. There's absolutely no emphasis on this. I don't know why this did really well, but again, I'm not reading too much into the numbers, you guys. This is a pass-fail thing. So these Veros are actually pretty cheap. So the internal modems are decoding packets. So down here is, let's see, there's kind of a reference thing here. This is the baseline. So I also use the ICOM 705, which is an SDR radio, really expensive. And I use Direwolf soft modems just to get the best possible reception out of this. And I got 260 packets. Fantastic, right? So that's kind of the baseline. So if these are getting around over 200 to 260, they're doing really well. And this is all using audio, right? This is testing the audio of the radio down here, which wasn't my intention to test. Looking back at I got another video where we actually test audio decodes using Direwolf, and like the UV5R was dismal. It only got 13 packets. This is an old test because of the front end doesn't have any filtering there. It does now. So they're like the Baofeng Minis. It's up among the leaders as far as the audio output goes. That's where we have the Mini there at 245s. So these are soft modem things, just testing the audio of each rig. But up here is actually testing the modems built in to each one of these rigs, and I personally thought they did really well. I would take any one of these rigs out into the field knowing it's my only source of communication. These are all good packet radios. If you want to go big, obviously you get a DigiPi and an SDR type receiver, and you know you're getting the best possible decodes going that route. So yeah, science. Hey, pretty cool. All of these radios are great radios. So hey, I'd like to thank the patrons of the channel. These guys made this video completely ad-free. You guys are awesome. Patreon.com/KM6LYW. Not only does it support the channel, but it gets you access to the DigiPi SD card image, which is an operating system you put into a Raspberry Pi, hook that up to your radio, and it gives you access to all the data modes that we talk about on this channel. Think of it like as the lab materials for this channel. DigiPi.org, if you want to check that out. It's really designed to be more of an appliance. Anyone can use a DigiPi. You don't need to be a Linux expert. It's not a half-baked Raspberry Pi project. That was really the goal here. And we have thousands of users in support of this with communities and mailing lists. It's really simple. You just configure it over Wi-Fi with your phone or or tablet or even PC. It kind of turns your radio into a website. So digipi.org, all of the data modes that we talk about on this channel, from APRS, which is really what we've been talking about today. You know, you can instantly make a digipeater or do networking or email, and then of course all of the HF modes like WSJTX, all available to you via your web browser in your phone or Wi-Fi device. So just some pictures here. You got a big one, a little one. It's hooked up to a 991 there. There's lots of different radio interface adapters. You can do APRS texting, right? Because I'll be honest, it sucks trying to do messaging here on these 10 keys on these radios. But if you got DigiPi, it's just like any other messaging app on your phone. So a lot of cool hardware developed in support of DigiPi. It's just tons of fun. See all my other videos on how to build like a node. We've got a node up on the hill here for AX.25 networking with AI chat, and you can play video games on it. So digipi.org is a takeaway here. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know if you've got a radio that maybe receives better than another one. I don't know. It would be cool to know if there's like a king of the hill and do some real scientific testing here for APRS reception. Maybe it's a router, maybe not a router, maybe it's a scanner with a discriminator tap and Direwolf. I have a feeling the soft modems are going to work the best. Let's find out. Hey, my name is Craig, amateur radio call sign KM6LYW. I'm in California and I'm clear.